If you're younger, I would definitely recommend going to art school. If you are coming back to it after a second career, don't hesitate to take classes, online classes even. You can really see how you're in a conversation with the painting, an immersive experience with the painting. You're never going to get whenever you just see a little thing. The artist will always explore new technology. The Renaissance was all about figuring out new technology. Learning how to paint 3D was using that new technology. There's nothing inherently bad about new technology. It's just being able to find ways to use it that it doesn't take over you.
Good morning. This is an inaugural video interview for our podcast from Wolfgang and Luke Gallery called Sit Down and Have a Tea. Now, in this case, we're having coffee because it's the morning. And it's our podcast that out of Great Falls, Virginia, where we are. And today I will be cutting the ribbon, so to speak, with Canadian landscape artist Heather Smiley, who you see here today with me. I know Heather personally. She's been friends with my parents. I want to say it dates back to like 75 or something. Is that when you first met, around there? 70.
First time I met your parents was when you were just learning to walk.
Okay. So basically I've known you all my life.
I've still got this very clear image of you learning to walk around the coffee table. So
that's pretty awesome. So my father and Heather went to the same art school, meshed with the people there at York University in Toronto, and that's in the 70s. And since you graduated from York, you tell me the order of it. You became a teacher, then you started a family, or you kind of did it all at the same time?
I briefly became a teacher and then left teaching and worked in other fields for about a decade.
Oh, okay.
And then after I started a family, I came back into teaching. Gotcha. And then, we eventually ended up full-time teaching once the kids were a bit older.
Yes.
And now I'm retired from teaching and back to painting.
Back to painting full-time. So that's the sequence of things. So I find that your work, it's an emotional experience for me. The rural scenes that you capture, they take me back to my childhood visits. We lived near Toronto and we would travel out to Chatham, Ontario. And then just around Ontario at that time, I look at your paintings and I know it so well. And it's such a nice throwback for me. I always wanted to like have like some kind of Toronto. I guess my dad's photographs show that gray, the black and whites, I think always suited Toronto so well because I just felt like I loved Toronto in like the January, February months where it was this kind of gray and kind of moody and I don't know. Anyway, so those are my two memories. So, but you've got, when I see your landscapes, I just get transported back and I just love it. So yeah, it's emotional for me. And I enjoy your shifts from the clear figurative images. There's one with the last days of summer, and it feels like I've been to so many job sites for my furniture job where I would go out to these kind of remote areas and there would be building, like an office building. And, we would go in and we would design furniture to go in and so I always, when I look at that last days of summer, I feel like that's a place where I feel like I would have my furniture in, the desks. So it's really kind of interesting going through your works and just different things that I guess, I don't know if it's Canadiana or what, but, so moving from those nice, figurative to the kind of middle ground of your, I guess, impressionist kind of landscapes to your more abstract kind of pieces. And you're actually moving more towards your abstract landscapes, which I'm really excited to see. So just to explain to the audience, whatever audience we end up having, Wolfgang and Luke Gallery recently acquired a healthy amount of Heather's works. And they're on view at our gallery, which are going to be kind of rotated because we've got a few of them and shared through social media. So with that, I just want to welcome Heather, and thank you for your patience as I go through my little intro and then my learning curve here as I learn to do this little podcast thing. So here we are.
Well, we're both learning.
Yes. So you grew up in very rural Canada on a farm. What was that like, and how did it kind of mold you into the artist that you are?
That landscape, or the idea of looking at landscape, has made me very much attuned to landscape, no matter where I go, and that's what I look to. It's where I feel most grounded.
Right.
Which is a bit of a pun, considering we're talking about landscape. But whenever it's fun to visit the city, and I lived there for a long time. But whenever I want to feel at ease, right, I need to get out into the country. And so that's what I paint, because that's, you were mentioning about the emotional reaction. It's a very emotional reaction. It's where you feel that, that joy whenever you look at light and color out in the country, whereas in the city, everything feels very restricted. So, I think that's been a lasting influence. I think the other thing is that whenever you grow up in a very rural area, and of course, back in the 60s, social media wasn't a thing. So a lot of your entertainment was up to you. And so you turn to, in my case, I turned to drawing and painting. And that was the outlet for expressing yourself, because your choices were fairly limited at that time.
Right.
And I know that whenever I was teaching, some of my most creative students tended to come from the most rural areas.
Interesting.
And I'd say, well, how come, what's going on out there that so many of you are such good artists? And I go, well, miss, there's nothing else to do.
It's not just the fresh air.
It's not just, it's...
There's less distraction.
I think sometimes it's really important to have to draw on your own resources and look at the world around you. Rather than look, you need to look out to different places, but you also need to draw from within yourself and what you have right around you.
That's really interesting. So you I just that's like my mind is going crazy on that thought now, because I think about writers that came from that kind of same background. And they wrote about what life was like out on the farm and that kind of thing. And I just always thought, we're so distracted growing up. There's TV, there's this, there's that, to entertain you. But I want to take my daughter out to a farm now for a summer and just say, draw.
I'll just throw that, this just put me in mind of, an essay written by Margaret Lawrence, who is a Canadian writer. And the essay is called Where the World Began. And she writes about the idea that what you do creatively comes from where your world begins. Right. So, interesting. If you have a chance, look it up sometime whenever you run out of other things to do.
I'll put it at the top of the list.
I'll tell you what, if I can find it somewhere, I'll forward it to you, because awesome. I think it's not, it's an essay. So it's, it's not, you don't have to read a novel or something like that. Yeah. And it's just, I think you would find it a really interesting observation about where creative ideas come from. Yeah. Yeah. We were talking, I was talking with my teaching artist about AI art, generated art, and but being able to actually just draw by yourself rather than manipulating kind of like an extension, I would say, of an arm, actually learning to write with your own arm, Yes.
And taking that your own time. And it also comes down to even just writing, learning how to print neatly and that kind of thing, and legibly, rather than just relying on computers to do everything for you. We do rely on computers and technology quite a bit. And
we do. And I think one thing that it does emphasize, though, is the importance of, we do create with our bodies. So you do have to be aware of how your brain and your arm and your fingers work, or to to all join together to create something.
Yes,
you can do, for sure, you can do it all with a computer.
Right.
But the computer is a tool. It's not
right.
It's not the source of creativity. It's a tool you can use for getting to creativity.
Right. And, does it breed kind of more creativity, or is it just kind of a kind of a game to kind of see how you can manipulate it? And so it's a removal from the actual creative process or something. And kind of really extension of who you are and opening up to who you are. And I saw this quote the other day about, or it was something about physically there's something about working with your hands and it releasing something in your brain, like whether it's doing art or like something like sculpting or painting or working in the garden or baking or something like that. But there's like there's a huge benefit to getting that handwork in somehow. And I was always amazed, like when I started the life drawing lessons, how physical, 'cause you're standing up, we stand up for 2.5 hours in the class, but you're so into what you're doing. You're just focusing so much on the object and getting it down, and time flies by. And all of a sudden you realize, oh my gosh, I'm exhausted, like it's just amazing, like all the energy that goes into doing, but it's very satisfying. It's nice. So
yes.
Yeah.
I find the same thing with plein air painting, because again, you do it standing up.
Right.
And you're looking at something and you, like you say, you're really processing how to take that thing in front of you and translate it onto a 2-dimensional surface.
Right.
And so it's a huge brain workout.
I think so. I think I wonder how much of the brain gets used, because I also saw this thing where it was a girl tracing, somebody had put like a figure of like a bird or something, and then placed a piece of paper so that she had to trace the shadow. And it said something like, she's right now using 90% of her brain or something like that. So I guess when you concentrate like that on something that, interests you so much, there must be a combination that just ignites the brain,
Yes.
So I don't know. Now I'm just making stuff up. What was it like to go to art school in the 70s in Toronto?
Oh, it was exciting because it was so different from anything I had done before, because I'd gone from, I'd lived in Ottawa for a couple of years, but Toronto was a whole other level. And then you are, at a university with people who have like interests, and they've come from all over Canada, all over the world.
Right.
And so it was a really exciting place to be.
Yeah.
And, you go to school during the week, and on the weekends you go downtown and look go around to all the galleries. And so it was just a really fun, exciting time.
And you'd mentioned that art criticism really came up around that time as well. Was it just that that it was just being published and it was something new, like art criticism? Like, because I think art criticism has always been around, but I guess it was just maybe a new style or new techniques.
Well, I think I had mentioned about Clement Greenberg coming to Canada in the late 50s and in the 60s, and he had really spurred on some of the painters who were dominant in Toronto in the 70s. So people like William Ronald and Jack Bush and Ron Bloor, and a whole host of painters who had really taken all the stuff, had learned from him all the stuff that was going on in New York City at the time, which was the absolute center of the art world. So that had really spurred things on. And then you had all of the newer stuff coming in with conceptual art.
Right.
So the stuff that was like an outgrowth of pop art.
Right.
And so you had these two things sort of mashing up together at York University.
Right.
So it was there were a lot of different ideas being thrown around at the time.
Sounds exciting. It does.
It was exciting. Yeah. And, there wasn't, And it's interesting, I read someone else saying much the same thing about his experience, that it's someone who's written a book about oil painting and just the whole how to use oil paints and stuff like that. And he said much the same thing, that at the time he was going to university, there were lots of ideas around and lots of theories and lots of, you were trying out different things. Right. But there wasn't much about the actual nuts and bolts about how to paint or draw and all that sort of thing. So the idea was you'd figure it out one way or the other. And people do. But sometimes there's a whole process of going back. But I'm sort of veering off in another direction. But yeah, there was just lots and lots of, there was lots of exciting stuff happening at the time. Right. And some of it was good. Some, like, as with all things in art, there was a lot of it that was garbage. Right. But sometimes you have to experiment and try stuff. Right. And you're not going to, people aren't going to be producing masterpieces all the time. Right. Right. Yeah. Just, I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and I found I wasn't hugely influenced by visual art, even though my dad was an artist, but I was more influenced, like, from just in Toronto, the music side of things. And I was so impressed with all of the shows that came to town in Toronto. Such a great music scene in Toronto. So I think, there was a lot of exciting things about Toronto. I don't know it so much now because I've moved away from Toronto and I'm not immersed in it. But I think Toronto is an interesting place. Just going into a bit of the background, what and who have been your inspirations from an art standpoint? One of the people who really pushed me towards, gave me the confidence to go ahead and go into, to pursue art a bit more, was teacher at the high school I went to. She was never actually my teacher because she came in my last year of high school. And so I wasn't able to take any of her classes. But she really encouraged me to pursue art after high school. And so because of her, I did follow that path. So, big kudos to Carol Bretzlaff, who continues to make art to this day. She's, and she moved back to a community that she had grown up in and was doing fairly experimental work at the time, and really to this day continues to do things to inspire young artists. So she was one of my biggest influences, for sure. Really? And do you stay in touch? Not closely. Yeah. Occasionally I run into her whenever I go back to my hometown. Right. But I will always be grateful to her for that push that she gave me. Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it's wonderful. If you could have, like, either a dinner party or some kind of, like, paint along or something like that, either one or as a group, who would you love to, any point in time in history, who would you love to have at the table? Oh, I had so much fun making the list for this. It was actually really hard to narrow it. Need a banquet hall. So I have my bit of paper here. So my dinner, if I could invite anybody to a dinner party, my first choice would actually be somebody who is a contemporary art critic. But I've learned more about art history from him than I probably, I forgot a lot from university, because university was very much here's a slide, memorize it. Memorize this significant things about this and move on, and you have to memorize like hundreds of slides. Right. This person is really, really good at explaining stuff behind the art, and his name is Waldemar Janicek. Yes. And so I would want to invite him. I'd want to invite Emily Carr, nice, who is a Canadian artist from the West Coast, who painted in the early 1900s. She was a contemporary of the Group of Seven, but was never part of the Group of Seven because she was a woman and
The group of
She wasn't quite landscapey enough for them.
Right.
I would choose Mark Rothko because he is the master colorist of the 20th century. I would choose Artemisia Gentileschi, who is an Italian painter who had a remarkably long life. She lived from 1593 to 1693.
Wow. In those times.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And so, and she was like a full-on artist, despite all kinds of huge difficulties she had to deal with. I choose Claude Monet.
Nice.
I had briefly considered Vincent van Gogh, but there'd probably be a bun fight before the end of the meal if you invited him. I would choose Joseph Turner.
Okay.
Another great English painter. Tom Thompson.
Yes.
And Canadian classic. And my other choice would be Joyce Wayland.
Oh.
And now she was meant. It's interesting that whenever I was thinking about art, when you gave me that question, I thought, I forgot to mention Joyce Wayland the last time. And then she turned up in that thing you sent me about Canadian art in the 70s.
Yes.
And she has always been one of my favorite artists. Yes. Just full of all kinds of ideas, but just a wonderful, wonderful painter.
Yes.
And so those would be my choices for a dinner party.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
It does. I think all of them are people who love color.
Yes.
Like I think that's they love color and they use color to express their love of their love of life or the ups and downs of life. Let's put it that it's not just like all roses and happiness and flowers and stuff like that. It's
covers the full range of emotions.
Yeah, the full gamut of life.
Yeah.
And so those would be my dinner party guests.
I like it. Colorful.
So
it'll be a colorful dinner party.
It would be a colorful dinner party for sure.
I can just imagine all the colors of food that you could kind of integrate into there. And now my imagination is running with this one. I like it. Who do you admire of contemporary artists?
Actually, I thought of one other person I need to add to the dinner party. I would be remiss if I didn't. Judy Chicago.
Okay.
Do you know, is the name familiar?
I've heard it. I've heard Judy Chicago, and I'm not placing it though. There's been a lot of names that.
She's a contemporary American artist.
Yes.
She's still active today, but one of the pieces she's best known for is something called The Dinner Party.
Oh.
And it's an installation piece. So imagine a banquet with a gigantic triangular dinner table, and she's invited all of these artists.
Okay.
Theoretically, all of these artists to a dinner party, and she's designed the plates and the cutlery and the glasses specific to that artist as a tribute to that artist.
That's cute.
So, imagine a plate with a Georgia O'Keeffe painting on it, or a plate with a Frida Kahlo.
Right.
And so I remember seeing the piece in Calgary, and it's huge. Like it takes up a lot of floor space. It's a very, very impressive piece. So you'd have to have Judy Chicago come too.
Yes. And we'd have to make sure that her plate reflects her. It's a dinner party within the dinner party within the dinner party.
Yes.
That would be fun. You talked about what you're working on now. You're working on the more abstract landscapes, which we'll look forward to seeing that roll out. Trying to think of, like an aspiring artist, I guess of any age, would you have specific kind of advice for a younger artist versus like somebody maybe coming back to it as a second career? Or, I'm an aspiring artist, kind of thing. So what in general could you say about maybe like go to school, don't go to school, or what I guess the younger ones you would say go to school maybe because they're going to go to school for something, so why pursue art or something like that. I'm sorry if this is too much of like a big question. You can break it down as you see fit, obviously. Yeah.
The first thing I'd say is draw, paint, sculpt, whatever it is you like to do. Yeah. Do it all the time, because the only way you get better at it is to do it. And so even if you do, I'll just use drawings as an example. Even if you do 10 drawings and 9 of them are crap, that's okay.
Right.
Because it's only in doing those things that you get better at it and become more comfortable and find your own voice as an artist. Right. For sure, if you need to also, whether you like it or not, learn the fundamentals of let's say you want to be able to learn the fundamentals of drawing in perspective or mixing color, anything like that, just so that you have the tools at your disposal to do the things that you want to be able to do. Because if you're got some idea of what you want to do, but you're struggling to get it struggling to make it work, it may be because you don't have those drawing skills or those painting skills or the sculpting skills, because there's that whole side of art that where there are the ideas, but there's also the body part where you just have there's a whole toolkit of things that you need to be able to carry out the ideas you want to bring out.
Right.
So whether you are young, let's say if you're younger, I would definitely recommend going to art school. If you are coming back to it after a second career, don't hesitate to take classes, online classes even. You may have to hunt around, but I've found that there's always so much more to learn. Yeah. So, and go to galleries, go and look at what other artists are doing, either, using your computer to just search or using the internet to search out stuff or going to galleries and seeing things in real life is really important. Yeah.
It's so different to see it, on your computer or print out versus the real thing. Especially the size does matter, gosh, nothing like a huge painting, right? If it's good, obviously, but or seeing what you can get done in the different sizes, what can be done in small or big or something like that.
Mm-hmm. For example, something like Barnett Newman's paintings or Mark Rothko's paintings, you see them online, you look at it and go like, well, what's that all about? It looks like just a couple of squares or just, you just painted some lines there. Right. But if you go and experience them in real life where they're so big that when you step up to them, you are surrounded by them. Like they take up all of your peripheral vision and the vision right in front of you. And you can really see how the painting, you're in a conversation with the painting, or you're in an immersive experience with the painting that you're never going to get whenever you just see a little thing. And even if it's just a little painting, let's say some of Tom Thompson's sketches that he did whenever he was out on his camping trips, and they're just little 6x8 panels. Right. But you get up to them and you see the paint is like a quarter of an inch thick, and you can see bugs embedded in it. You can see how he loads up his brush with these big globs of paint and just lays it on there and just puts one stroke on there, and it's a genius stroke. And you just look at it and you go like, wow.
Shivers just thinking about it. Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's good. Do you have a favorite painting of your own?
I do, and it's one that nobody else seems to like. And but you know what, that's okay.
Is it just personal? Cause it reminds you of is it like technically you like it, or is it an evocation that you like, or was it made during a time that brings you a lot of joy, or?
I'd say sort of a combination of all three of those. It's a painting I did last spring of magnolias.
Okay.
And it was done about the same time that I did that little little daffodil painting that so many people like.
Yes.
And it's painted as freely as the daffodils, but it's bigger.
Yes.
And it's just branches of the magnolia tree against a blue sky.
Yeah.
And I look at it and I go like, wow, I wish I could do that again. And I love that feeling of magnolias in the spring and just that whole promise of spring.
Right.
But for whatever reason, it's been shown several times and everybody's just sort of passed it by. And I look at it and I think it's that's just a really good painting.
I guess it's just meant for you to keep. You're not really supposed to let it go. So, yeah, I mean, I've done things or I've seen things that I'm like, that's amazing. And then somebody says something, to the contrary. And I think, oh well.
And sometimes your favorite painting is the one that you're working on right now. I'm just going to do one thing.
Yeah. Ooh.
There.
Nice.
Now it's incomplete. The sky will not be brown.
I kind of like the brown sky, to be honest.
You will have some brown showing through. But anyway, it's
lovely.
We're talking about more like abstract type landscapes, and that's sort of where this one's heading.
That was a nice reveal, Heather.
There we are.
That was very good. That was like light show. I like it.
Yeah. I'll just leave. It doesn't really matter if the light's on or off. But yeah, that's what. No,
you'll see it like with the video. That was pure genius there. Just it really looks really lovely. Yeah.
No, there's still so
far so good.
Bottom triangle is going to be a lot more yellow.
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure about the sky yet.
Okay.
The greens are actually much more vibrant than they appear to be in the video. Like right now they look very muted, but they're actually fairly bright.
Right.
And the yellow is, yeah. So it's not done yet.
It's not done. No. And so far you're enjoying it? You're liking it?
I am. It's I'm working mostly not with a brush, but with a paint scraping tool.
Nice.
So I'm just laying the paint on rather than trying to brush it on. So it's going well.
Nice.
So I hope to be finished in the next day or so. We'll see where things go from there.
Nice. Well, that's exciting.
Yeah. I'm really hoping to, we'll get through the whole Christmas thing, and then I hope the January is extremely quiet.
Yeah.
I just want everybody to go away.
Yes, I'm hoping so. From the evening of the 25th forward, just take time off and just do some creative stuff. I could show you my collage work that I was working on. Would you like to see it?
I'd love to see it. Okay. Yes.
So I'm just going to preface it. So we ended up having like a life drawing, life painting class. It started out as a Christmas still life when then the model showed up and I said, okay, quick switch. So the teaching artist, he painted, the figure very nicely, but I want to show it in the gallery just as an example of life painting. And, but he's nude. So I had to dress him a little bit to make him. So this is what I'm working on. So I put him, I decided to have some fun and I said, well, let's go with some natural elements. I just took one magazine.
It's a great drawing.
Oh, he's a really great artist. So I just kind of covered him up here with some greenery and then decided to play with some like the natural elements, so like sky and ocean and beach, and then kind of just framed it up there. And then I'm not sure how I feel about this, but it's, like an apartment building that's covered in greenery, and then a house in the snow. So just kind of focusing on a little bit on like a combination of architecture and nature. And then just some like just some graphic details there. So I don't know. We'll see. But I do enjoy.
Are you planning to fill the whole thing in?
No, I don't think so. I was thinking maybe putting some paint around it, but just kind of playing with both paint and the thing, but I don't want to detract obviously from him, from the figure. So I'm not sure how I feel about those. I mean, that can always be changed or something, but just playing around with it. I mean, these are just like study pieces.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of thing that it's like there's a landscape beginning to form around him.
Right.
And the idea of, let's say, drawing in more landscape around him might be
that's
an interesting combination.
Yeah. Yeah.
Drawing or painting in a landscape around him.
Yeah. I think I'm just, this piece I'm having some fun with, letting myself have some fun with. And yeah. So the teaching artist doesn't know I'm doing this collaboration with him yet, but it'll be a surprise. But yeah, so that's it. That's what I was just working on last evening, just dawdling around, after hours and decompressing after the day. So
he's funny, you gave him a fig leaf.
I gave him the fig leaf. Just thought I want people when they come in to see the artistry that he's done, but then I couldn't help but just keep on going with some extra stuff. So we'll see. But things can always be kind of removed and whited out. So
that's the fun of collage. It's a great way to play around.
It is.
And to explore ideas.
Right.
And just like build and build and build the layers.
Right.
Because it's always fun to, like, there's just whenever you get those layers and layers of visual things and color.
Yes.
It really pulls you in.
Yes.
So I would say, like, go for it. Like, really, if you're, although I know you want to use it as a way to show off, to showcase his drawing.
Right. So that's the struggle that I'm having right now. But if I keep on finding, like, I can take my time and find more and more images that can kind of fit in, that, because we were having a whole conversation about young kids. Like, somebody had a theory that there's a movement for like maybe Gen Z and younger, or even some like 90s born children and younger, to not venerate the past, look instead only to the future. So that means that, classical ways of learning, things that you learned in the older ways, are now no longer relevant. But if you rely solely on technology for creation of things, that the technology becomes obsolete, as we know, but when you know how to draw, you'll always know how to draw. That will always be, if you know how to grow food, you can always create food. And so not kind of having that, do we actually fear that this is happening, or are young people still interested in kind of a simpler lifestyle or a tech-free lifestyle? I don't know how to call it.
I read a really interesting article this morning about book sales.
Yeah.
And apparently, book sales are highest right now amongst the younger generation.
Ah, okay.
That they much prefer reading actual paper books,
right,
compared to using e-readers of any sort.
Right.
And certainly there's a whole, just in terms of younger artists. There are an astonishing, I shouldn't say astonishing, there are many younger artists who are churning back to moving away from the more technical stuff. Now, there's still artists out there who are doing really interesting, creative stuff that is technology based. But there are lots of younger artists who are going back to the old technology of, let's say, painting on canvas. And there's a couple of them. I think I mentioned Kent Monkman last week, Canadian artist. And there's a young British artist called Flora Yuknovich. Yuknovich, I think I've got that right. who does paintings that are just, there are modern, they're contemporary, but you look at them and you go like, you've gone back to Rococo art from the 1600s. So artists are always looking back into history and plumbing those areas and coming up with new interpretations. So artists will always explore new technology. Whenever you think about it, the Renaissance was all about figuring out new technology, because going from painting, what had been done before that, like Gothic art, and moving into the Renaissance with painting, learning how to paint 3D, was using new technology. So there's nothing inherently bad about new technology. It's just being able to find ways to use it that it doesn't take over you. So,
yeah, I think it's, like, I think maybe it's like, just like a little bit, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You go first.
There's just always a fear of like just throwing away kind of the wheel in a way, like the origins of things, like not knowing the origins, like where we come from and where things come from and why things are the way they are, so that obviously like you don't repeat like mistakes, but also you just build on it rather than flushing it down the toilet and starting from scratch, saying, no, like, we are, we're on the shoulders of giants, and just acknowledge that and know who it is. But the school system doesn't necessarily teach the giants. But I don't know. I mean, things move back and forth as they need to, right?
Yeah. And people are very inquiring, and they will always, even if you are, let's say, you do anime, there's still a whole history in there that if you are really interested in anime, you will go back and explore that history that goes back hundreds of years in the history of Japanese art. Or, if you are, let's say, an animator for Disney, there's a whole history in there that you will learn.
And I do love, like, I love being able to do research online, like I didn't grow up with that, kind of being able to say like, oh, where did this come from? Now you can, and find out a whole lot more.
Isn't that amazing how just at the drop of a hat, you can
go down any rabbit hole you want. Yeah. Oh, well. Thank you for showing your art and sharing with us what you're doing and all this stuff. It's really nice, and thank you for letting me share with you my little piece. That
that was really neat to see that.
Yeah, I'll keep you up to date on how that one's coming along.
But I would also encourage you to explore collage as a way of expressing yourself.
Yes,
because it's being able to take all those different images and put them together, and then they create something very new. Just putting two possibly apparently unrelated images together. Can spark all kinds of new things.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess that's where I started to go down the path of what I did with the younger generation was that I, like I thought, well, what's important? Like, you think like, well, there's kind of the, the history and that kind of thing and classical stuff, nature, and then also the reality of, where we live in, but, can we make, architecture still nice and integrated and, all these kinds of ideas. And yes, what is pleasing to me? Like, what do I like to see? When I leaf through this particular thing. So it's one of those, like, am I reacting to a particular magazine that I get, or am I going for a, particular look of something? So I guess it'll be a combination, but it'll be fun to put together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, you're still, let's say with the life drawing class, you're doing some life drawing?
We're doing life drawing. Yes. Yeah. I didn't manage I got taken away from the first half hour of the class to do something else. So by the time I came in, I was just kind of sketching at my table, but I didn't set up an easel for myself and all that. So I just a little bit, but yeah, still doing the life drawing. And I do gesture drawing, with Vivian, so my daughter. So I just kind of say, do a pose, and she loves it. She's theatrical. And it's great because she's young, because I don't have that much time. So I got to get it down fast. So it's good practice. So, and I go, okay, switch, now switch, now switch, now switch. And she loves it. She says, oh, you got it. Or she can see it or something. So
that's really good practice. And it's the kind of thing that you can do it for a while. And then if she's interested, she can give it a try and you can be the model.
Well, that's what I'm hoping, here's hoping, so that, she gets into that or something like that. But yeah, it would be fun and just to have fun with it, because we've started to do, when we can do something together in art, she seems to really enjoy it. She says, oh, I can do this all day. Where she did one half of a sunflower and I did the other. And then, but in secret or in private, section. And then we brought it together and she said, oh, she just thought it was the coolest thing. So it was again and again and again and again. And it was really fun. So it's fun. That's a great way to be with your daughter and for both of you to learn more. No kidding, because I'm looking at hers going like, I like yours better than mine, and she's looking to mine like, oh, I could have done that, So it's really funny how we kind of look at each other's like, oh, okay. And then the next one becomes a little bit influenced by the other. So it's kind of, so yeah. So you can do that with so many things, like think about all the pet portraits that you do. Yes. We've got, I usually let her go in and do something on it, and she'll just, in the past, she's been young and but we can totally do something fun. So anyway, well, again, thank you.